Hey guys, Enrique here from Novation. I'm here to show you the Circuit Mono Station. You might be familiar with Circuit. This is the little brother to that guy in that same family line. We have an all-analog Paraphonic synthesizer up top with Circuit Sequencer down below. We have envelope, LFO control with 4 different shapes as well as a sync option, a really cool mod matrix which I'll get to in a second, our oscillator section allowing you to control both oscillators, this mixer section with 6 different knobs controlling the ring modulator, the oscillator 1 and 2, as well as a sub-oscillator, noise, and the audio input which you have on the back. In the filter section, we got a pre-filter overdrive, low pass, band pass, high pass options, 12 dB slope, as well as 24 dB slope option, resonance, a huge filter knob like we always like to do on our Novation products, a cool bypass option which allows you to bypass the filter with either oscillator 2 or the noise or both, and then 3 post-filter analog distortions with a selectable choice between the 3. Down below, you have Circuit Sequencer, which some of you may be familiar with. But in here, we have new added pattern settings, which allow you to speed up the sequencer or divide it down all the way down to fourths or 60/4, as well as different play modes. We have forward, backwards, ping pong, as well as random. You can also change the start and end points of your sequencer. Right now, I have a simple sequence going on oscillator 1. What makes Circuit Mono Station really unique is the ability to then sequence oscillator 2 separately from oscillator 1. So if I press play and play some notes on oscillator 2, you'll hear them overlaid with oscillator 1. What makes Circuit Mono Station really unique is the ability to sequence these separately, because where normally you have oscillator 1 and 2 making up the single voice in a monophonic synth, this allows you to split that into almost a 2-voice polyphony, but it's called paraphonic. So oscillator 2 still relies on oscillator 1 opening up the amp envelope as well as the filter to be heard. But this, if you hold down shift and hit scales, you can turn on paraphonic mode, allowing oscillator 2 to then control the amp envelope. So if we go down an octave, you'll see that the controls are green, signifying that I am controlling oscillator 2. So let's lay down a new sequence for oscillator 2. In the pattern section, you have 16 different patterns for oscillator 1, which you can then tie together to make a 16-bar pattern. 8 different patterns for oscillator 2 and 8 for the mod sequence. So right now, I've tied 4 patterns together for oscillator 2, creating a 4-bar pattern. And I'm leaving oscillator 1 at just 1 bar. So now I'm going to play a new sequence in oscillator 2 to overlap. Press record and then play. So now you can hear oscillator 2 playing different notes than oscillator 1. Turn up the resonance. In the mod matrix, this is where things get really cool. I can say I want the envelope to be sent to the filter destination, positive or negative. So if we turn the filter up, you can hear that it's kind of doing a dipping sound. Turn that back up. Maybe not as much. So this is how you can create new patterns and layers using Circuit Mono Station. Another unique feature to this is the mod sequencer, where you can then say, on certain parts of the step sequencer, I want to play different values, which you can then send to different destinations, even the auxiliary send, in the mod matrix. So on the first step, I want it to be a full value. The second step, maybe just about a quarter. Let's do 3/4. And then we can even duplicate some of these values across using the duplicate button. So now you can see that it's sending this value out, but it's not sending it anywhere because we haven't set it up yet. If you go to the source, sequence, you choose a sequencer, which is the mod sequence, and then again, filter will send it positive. You can see that it's kind of jumping up in values. So this kind of creates a sample and hold style LFO that you design, but if you hold down shift and hit the mod sequence, it'll smooth out the values in between. The cool thing about this sequencer and the pattern settings is that all the pattern settings are independent of one another. oscillator 1, 2, and the mod sequence can all have different settings per pattern, per session, and then creating new polyrhythms within one another. In Monostation, you have 32 songs that you can save, as well as 64 different patches that you can save. In Circuit Monostation, you have all of Circuit's original scales, including the C minor, major, all of the others, as well as the chromatic mode at the end. Then after that, you got these 3 analog post-filter distortions. 3 different types that you can then select from here and change the knob from here. If we wanted to listen to a couple of these, let's check this out. This is with the filter fully open. You can hear it as I close it. Let's go to type 2. And then type 3. Some of the shift options on here include the swing value. Right now you can see we're at 50% swing, 5-0. We can then change that and turn it up. I'm usually more of a 63, 62 kind of guy. And when you let go of shift, this now controls the tempo. We're at 120, 128. Let's slow it back down to about 100. Another cool feature about Circuit Monostation is this option to mutate one of your sequences. What mutate does is it takes the notes that you have originally entered in your sequence, flips them on their head, and completely creates a new random sequence out of the data that you have already entered. So let's try this out. Right now we have a simple sequence on oscillator 1. If I press mutate, maybe I don't like that one. Let's try one more time. Cool, maybe I like this pattern. I can then go to patterns, shift and duplicate that over, and I now have that pattern saved. And in here, we now have a new pattern. So if we go to note mode again, we can then mutate it one more time. Maybe I like that one as well. Now I can just press these two together and it'll tie them together. And you can see that it goes back and forth between the two. You have a glide option, which you can then put different glide values per step per sequence. Gate mode, controlling the gate or the sustained length of a sequence or a specific step in that sequence. Velocity mode, controlling the velocity of each step. Note mode, of course, allowing you to enter notes. And then the expand mode, which gives you 2 octaves of whatever sequencer you are then controlling. But if you press oscillator 1 and 2, it enters dual mode, allowing you to control both oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 at the same time. All of the parameters up top are fully record automatable, so you can then hit record, move some things around, even down to the mixer volumes. For example, on this sequence that we have, I can say I want noise to bypass the filter frequency. So if I turn up noise, you can hear it. If I hit record, I can then record the automation of me moving the noise knob. Maybe a little slower. And it's kind of cool because it plays off of the amp envelope that oscillator 1 is then controlling. So it almost sounds like a hi-hat. Another great addition is all the ins and outs on the back of this. You have an auxiliary CV output, which is great use for a modular system, and it's also a destination in the mod matrix. You have your CV and gate out, which is controlled by oscillator 1 sequence, MIDI in, out, and through, so you can tie this in with any other system, as well as an audio input, which you then have level control over in the mixer. Oscillator 1 sends out MIDI data on MIDI channel 1 and oscillator 2 on MIDI channel 2, so then you can sequence other external gear at the same time as sequencing this one.